Hi, it's Lee at Simplify Adulting, and today we are going to hop into starting a business. And I'd like to thank someone who commented on one of my videos and said, "Hey, could you do a video on starting a business? It seems complicated and hard and confusing and lots of things to think about." And it is absolutely all of those things. So I'm going to give you my view. It's going to be less hype. Um, Everyone kind of talks about now doing their own thing and running their own business, and that's all great, but they're behind the hype. There's a lot of work and there's a lot of things to think about, and that doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means you think about those things when you're making those decisions. And so one of the questions was like, how do you even know when you have a business? And I'm going to kind of break it down into two sides. So there's a side where there are some legal requirements. When you file your entity, so and a lot of times you'll hear an LLC or sole proprietorship or C corp. That means that when you file to have a business and make your business an entity, you have some choices of what type of entity that is. There also can be regulatory requirements or other licensing requirements depending on your type of business. And of course, there's the are you paying taxes element. So those are some of the things that make it a legal business. But on the flip side of that, there's just more of, I'll call it a functional definition. And I think we can say we have a business when some customers are reliably willing to pay for our products or services. And so it just means that we have this exchange of, hey, I have this thing to offer and I've got a set of customers that are willing to pay for it. Because if you have the legal stuff without that other functional side, it doesn't really do you much good. And on the flip side, if you've got something and you're making money at it and it seems to be really great, but you haven't done any of the work on the legal side and the structure side, you're definitely going to run into problems. I can say most definitely the thing that's easiest to get hooked on to convince ourselves that we've got a business is getting this website up and a logo and kind of getting branding going. And in my experience, that is where a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself on my first business venture, spent too much time. And we'll talk a little bit more about, where that kind of fits. But at the end of the day, it's really about having that legal structure and also this exchange of money for your goods and services. One of the parts of the question I really liked was about packaging. And I just want to pull it up to the front because it's a great example of something. Well, first of all, it doesn't seem as sexy and fun as thinking about logos and branding and marketing, and you hear those words. But it's just a great example of the types of decisions that you need to make and that you need to think through and that you can't take for granted, especially in the early days of your business, because they can have big implications. So packaging can impact a lot of stuff. And so the way I think about when you're going to make a decision as an entrepreneur or business owner is I kind of like to do an upstream and a downstream kind of map out. Like if I make this decision to do that, what does it look like after that? And what did it take to before that to be able to get to that point? So I'm going to give an example. So one of my businesses, and you can find my YouTube channel at Woman in Disguise, because I had a wig business and I did both online. I had a brick and mortar retail store, and I also did events. And I made some really horrible packaging decisions. And they were horrible because they weren't timed right with where I was at. So here's what I did from a packaging perspective and just the ramifications of it. And I had to make some changes then, is I wanted my customers to receive really beautiful customized packaging when they ordered something online. Of course, my retail customers came in and they received the product that way. But when I shipped those orders, so a choice I had was I could have just drop shipped it from the manufacturer, which would have been their product. It would have been in their box and the person would have gotten it. I chose not to do that because I wanted this really branded experience. And so I had the product shipped to me and then I would repackage it and ship it out. But because I didn't want that length of time, it made me uncompetitive and bigger suppliers out there when you could order things online. I made the decision to stock more inventory so I could have that on hand and be able to ship it out. And those were hugely costly mistakes to me, and they really ate into my profitability. So I quickly realized, wow, that is not why these customers are buying that product from me. They trust me, they know I have a good product, but the packaging isn't really what they're interested in. So it's those little types of things that seem small. And it was easy for me to get focused on kind of the fun, shiny part of that, which is like making the branding really there. And when I thought about it and saw how much that was costing me at that point in my business, that was not where I needed to be spending the money. So I think that packaging question is a great one. It is not a small one. And by the way, specifically on that, there's all kinds of great resources from the US Postal Service, shipping companies. They really do have programs to cater to small business owners where you can get information. But yes, if you want to be a small business owner or an entrepreneur, those types of questions you have to ask them. And then you really have to kind of map them out, because seemingly small decisions can have pretty huge, big, significant financial impact. So I love that you thought of that question. So three non-negotiables to me when you think about starting a business is that I would encourage you to ask yourself, to really say, is this viable? Is this something that I want to put time, energy, and effort towards? And the first one is a problem. You have to be able to define the problem or the pain that you're going to solve. And then you kind of have to go out there and confirm, do enough people have this problem, and are they willing to pay to solve it? That's kind of that problem equation that you have to walk through. And I'm gonna there's a really funny show I like. It's called Fisk. It's on Netflix. It's an Australian kind of comedy. But there's a wills and estates attorney who gets, this person says, hey, I have a great business idea for you guys to enhance your services. And they propose that they tell people to set a dead word. And she was like, why would we, do this? He says, a great opportunity, because when the family members go to a medium to try to contact their, passed away loved one, they can know the dead word, and they'll know if that medium or psychic is ripping them off. And he said it can totally disrupt the whole psychic industry. And so you can kind of sit there and go, okay, that could be a problem, but is it one that there's enough people who want to solve it, and are they really willing to pay to solve it? So, by the way, I love that show. I highly recommend it. So that was just a great example of that, of make sure that you've really walked through the problem equation. The other thing is MVP, a minimal viable product. And the whole idea of this, and again, I can attest to this, I'm guilty of everything that I'm talking about, making mistakes in these areas. And so I'm kind of pulling up the ones that were the biggest trip points. And it is super easy to want to go to market or launch your product or your service with every bell and whistle thought out. And what you want to do is actually think of, what's the minimum I can do to solve that problem for that customer and have them pay me for it. Not forever, but just to start. Because if you're trying to, I'll say, put too much in and make too many decisions up front, you're kind of guessing. And so you can make some expensive decisions or things that slow you down when people would have been paying you, before 3 additional features got put in. And it's much better to learn what works and invest in that or scale it, or what doesn't work so you can stop doing it, by actual customer feedback instead of just trying to guess. And this also just really is important. Speed is pretty much the name of the game, and you always want to choose speed over this idea of perfection, because perfection doesn't exist, and we're just going to always be smarter by knowing what we should do next with it, by learning from how customers are responding to it. And that could be that you're getting no customers to respond to it, and that says, oh, I've got something off here. So think about that MVP approach. The last thing is money. And this is one of the most important things to do as an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And let's face it, there are not many topics in life that have triggers for most of us, like money. We have money stories, we have money beliefs, we all kinds of stuff wrapped up with money. And when you're running your own business and you're doing your own thing, you just, those things just don't go away for you, and they can really leak in to decisions that you make in your business. So one, if you're not good with your own personal finance, I would highly recommend that you really focus on doing that, because you're probably not going to manage your business finances better than you run your personal finances. And the concepts are so similar to what makes us successful in both. And so the money thing is, early revenue is super slow and it's fragile. And I think most entrepreneurs would tell you that the first 100K is like the hardest money you'll ever earn, right? So it's slow and it's hard. And so if you can figure out how to keep another income stream going while you're starting your business, that is a really good thing to try to do, whether it's, keeping that day job, or if you have reliable gigs you can do to bring in money. And in reality, you're going to be funding your business with your own money. And I know we sometimes hear these hyped up stories and, people, investors and VCs and all this stuff. And like, just for the average entrepreneur and startup, that's not out of the gate. That's just not reality. And so really think about money. It's it's so relevant, and you want to be so targeted and specific on what you spend your money on in your business. And you want to stay away from spending it on things that are bright and shiny and don't help you uh, basically deliver to a customer. And demand and delivery, right? Those are kind of the two things that are really super important. The other thing that comes up a lot with starting your own business is this idea of passion and build out your passion. And I think passion's a great thing. There are things that I'm passionate about, but I'll tell you what, I would highly recommend that you choose to focus on a business that is going to operate on your strengths and not your passion. It, your strengths can be leveraged, and whether they're tech skills, they're people skills, they're systems thinking, whatever you're good at, the processes. So you want to think about how you leverage what you have, because a lot of times when we're starting a business, we kind of are solopreneurs, right? We're just trying to figure it out. And so you want to try to play to your strengths, and passion can come in, and it can be important because it can keep us motivated, and it can keep us, when it gets hard, it can help us get through things. But there is nothing better than execution discipline in these early stages. And I think that is more powerful for starting and getting a business off the ground than passion. So that's just my 2 cents on the whole passion thing. But you hear a lot of it, like, it's my passion, my passion. And again, not that that's bad, but if that's all you've got, I would really think through how you're going to execute that business, because if it's passion alone, there's going to be a lot of roadblocks. Okay, another big lesson I've learned: maximize your network and your free or low cost support options. There are so many programs out there that are definitely playing to starting your own business, whether it's selling e-products, doing all this stuff. And and I've joined them. I've spent decent money on them. And it's not that they're bad or the people don't care or that they're necessarily wrong. In my experience, those programs are really too generic to actually help you. They can give you a general framework, but there's not enough meat and depth in certain areas that really help you get unstuck, because they're trying to meet lots of different types of businesses, different types of challenges, right? So they're kind of doing this general approach. And what I have found in my experience is the things that get me stuck, like there are things like, okay, I need to really get in this, or I just general top level won't work. And so I really, high paid programs are not the best way for you to spend your money when you're starting the business, especially when there are so many great free and no cost, resources out there. And this is mostly US centric, but I am guessing wherever you're at, there are these types of organizations. So there's a small business organization or small business association, excuse me. They have amazing resources and most of them are free. And they are people. They're not just tools online. You can go and meet with real people. They can do connections. They can help you network. Most city and state and county level government agencies have tons of resources. They want us starting, but most people in this country work for small, medium sized businesses, right? So they want this. So they're going to give you that tool and support and not usually charge you for it because they want you to be successful because that's good for the local economy. So really figure out how to maximize those. And another thing, reach out to the people in your community that run their own businesses. I don't care if it's a food cart, if it's a retail, but anyone doing their own thing, my gosh, reach out and say, hey, would you be willing to talk to me? Can I buy you a coffee to pick your brain? I really like your business. I'm impressed by it. Would you tell me? I have not ever met an entrepreneur that isn't, or business owner that just isn't more than willing to share what they've learned and also help connect you with other people that might be trying to do something similar, have something in the same area. It's just the way that community works. Um, and so instead of spending money on kind of these, you know, business programs or these programs out there that are targeted at first time entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, I would really think about using those dollars to say, how do I really validate what the demand is for this? And like, how do I get it out there and try to stay away from the flashy, anything like around websites, logos, all that stuff should really be minimal. Um, so that you're spending money and where you're going to get that leverage and build demand and be able to deliver so you get that reliable exchange of money for your services. I'm going to share a few resources that I really recommend. And one's, she's on YouTube. She's got podcasts and everything, but her name is Cody Sanchez. And I will put her handle and everything down in the show notes. I saw her for the first time about 2 years ago. Really impressive woman. She's got a very interesting background, actually started out in journalism, but she's just super dynamic and she has all these creative ideas. And here's what I really like about her. She really is focused on having people think more about being a business owner versus an entrepreneurship. And she focuses a lot on how would you go to a business and maybe even buy it? How can you work those types? Because there's a lot less risk and taking something on versus trying to start something from new, and all the stats back her up on that. The other thing I really like about her is she kind of talks about Main Street. So looking at businesses that can thrive in the community in which they are located, which I really, really like, and keeping that economic development within the community. And then she really thinks about kind of the non-sexy stuff of recession proof. So she's got some great ideas on it, but she does really fun stuff. And I just think she's quite brilliant. And so she shoots straight. So I really recommend that you check out her and subscribe to her because if you're thinking about this, she gives you so many awesome things to think about. The second one is it's a podcast. It's called How I Built This, and it's by a gentleman named Guy Raz. And he talks to some of the great founders of the brands that we all know about. And a couple things that I like about this resource is it becomes abundantly clear that no one just has an overnight success. most of these brands that we just think like, oh my gosh, they came out of nowhere and now they own the world, right? These big, huge brands, there's just so much toiling for years. And ones sometimes where they really did have this super, fast rise, there's oftentimes this really painful fall. And so it kind of takes that hype persona of these really successful brands and gives you a peek into how hard they worked and how much went into it and how long really it took to get them there. And then they have this add-on series called Advice Line. So how I built this advice line, and they bring those amazing founders back on, but they take call-ins from real business owners and entrepreneurs and that do anything and everything. And some people are making $30,000 a year in their business, and some are figured out how to get to 1 million. And it's all different, but it is so helpful to be able to hear those questions and think about them and go, oh, I'm going to learn from that. Or, yeah, how would I handle that? And you can get so much good information from listening to that. And again, I'll put information in the show notes. And to the point of finding a really good, like, one-on-one personal coach, I'm just going to put the link into someone who I work with. His name is Del Lewis. He's a super upstanding guy. He doesn't do big flashy programs. He does do one-on-one things. And the other thing he does that I love is I'm part of something that he calls Power Hour, which is really bringing together entrepreneurs, all different stages, all different experience levels, and just kind of hosts us to say what's going on, because this is a space, if you decide to do this, you got to find your people because it can feel really lonely. And you want to be able to have people where you can say like, oh my gosh, I tried this and nothing, or wow, I did this and I'm totally surprised this worked. And so having that energy. And so I really like that ability to have a group of entrepreneurs where we can talk. And so Dell does something great called the Power Hour. And so I'll put his, and he does great YouTube videos as well. And he's done lots of different things and has a wonderful book and talk about his background and his experience. So, but he's one of those people that I would go to saying, okay, here's a problem and I think I need to get deep into it. He would be one of those people where we could pick it and really go deep and figure out the solution that would work for me. So find your resources, but really that's just another example of really low cost or zero cost resources that are out there that are super helpful. And the last thing I'll throw out there is, as you think about starting your own business, doing your own thing, just take time to write down why you want to do that. Like, what is that for you? And not because there's a right or wrong answer, but because it matters that you kind of understand, like, why am I going to do this? Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It doesn't mean it's not worth it. But when you get to that, what am I really wanting out of this? One, that can help us when we're making decisions and going, do I want to do this or do that? You can go back to, wait, I'm doing this for this reason. Maybe, developing a European market. I'm just making examples here. Isn't that important to me because I really want to serve my local community? Then you won't go chase that, right? And the other thing is, when it is hard and it feels grueling, yeah, let's tap into that thing that it's like, I want to do this for this reason, and that's still worth it. And that's worth the pain that I'm going through right now. So that's my final thought on starting a business for this video. There's many, many more. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it helped answer some questions. And if you like this video and you want me to do a video on something else, put it in the comments and I'll do it. Until then, stay happy and healthy. And at Simplify Adulting, our focus is about making adulting doable and confidence possible. See you later.